Okay, now we've got to deal with what happens when Bilbo is going in the wrong direction. Eventually, he's going to walk off the screen and go forever, which is not making us happy. So, what we want to do is basically, when he hits a wall, we want him to turn around, or not completely turn around, but make some change in the direction he's facing. So, when he hits a wall, we want him to turn, go in a different direction, pick a new way to go. Now, I'm just going to show you real quick your toolbox for everything that you know about programming. Toolbox, loops. Loops help you do things over and over and over again. Math, we talked about math.squirt, math.pal, math.everything. Also, you know how to do if statements. If statements helps you to make a decision, which is pretty handy. Now, muy importante, do not put a semicolon here. You'll notice an if statement does not get a semicolon, no semicolon. Curly brackets make it meet more than one line of code if you want that, and don't forget it. If you need an else, you may or may not need an else, but if gets his own set of curly brackets, and then else gets his own set of curly brackets, and there's some good syntax. While we're talking about syntax, let's talk about some more math stuff. Real quick, tricky syntax about doing random numbers. Random numbers look like that. Get all your parentheses right. Gets a little tricky. That will give you a random number between 1 and 6, FYI. Remember, this is the number of possible outcomes you're going to get. Now, also, don't be scared of Boolean variables. Boolean. So you could have a Boolean data type just like int. Then you give it a name. I'm going to call it B. And then the only thing you can put in there is true or false. Now, something that's very interesting. Do not do this, because that is not a Boolean. That's a string. That is the word true. So that will not fit in the cup. That will fit in the cup. And then, if you wanted to, you could say if that cup, instead of saying if it's equal to 10 or if it's equal to 20 or equal to whatever, you could say if it's equal to true, do something, or if it's equal to false, do something. So, nice syntax that you could deal with. Now, your next mission for phase 4. As far as phase 4 goes, what we want to do is get Bilbo to point in the opposite direction of the ring, which you kind of already have going on. Once you have that, what you want to do is when he hits a wall, you want him to turn. Now, I'm going to let you pick how much you want him to turn by, but don't forget, it's not degrees, it's radians. So you could turn him by pi over 4, or 3 pi over 2, or pi over 6, or whatever. So you're going to have to make a change in terms of radians. Now, here's where things get complicated. Some questions you want to ask yourself. How will you know when he hits a wall? What in your code toolbox will help you determine, did I hit a wall? How many walls are there? And so how many walls are there? How many questions or decisions will you need to make or ask? Like how many questions will it take to say, did I hit all the walls? Now, those questions that you're going to have to ask, where will you need to put those questions? Will you put them in the startup part before he starts moving? Will you put it in the moving part while he's moving, or will you put it in the part after that when he's done moving? You kind of have 3 sections: setup, move, and then post movement. So where are you going to need to be asking, am I touching a wall? Now, this one's interesting. This is not your friend to say, am I touching a wall? We'll come back to that. And if you want to use a Boolean, it might make your life a little easier, because you've got lots of walls. You want to maybe assume you're not hitting a wall, change your mind if you need to, and then maybe look back in that cup and say, okay, after all this work, look in the cup. Was I touching a wall? If I was, maybe I should do something. Now, 2 things I want you to do. When you hit a wall, you want to turn him by a certain amount. I don't even care. Play with it till you like it. When you realize he's touching any wall, he should turn. And there is a variable that I want you to update. The number of times you hit a wall. It's called num hits. So I want you to turn him and add 1 to num hits. once you have all this working and you're going to make sure he's bouncing off or turning when he hits all of the walls, you get a run and you're happy with it. Now, can you put Bilbo in a random spot on the screen? Right? And where would you do that? Would you do that, again, would you do that before he starts moving, while he's moving, or when he's done moving? So you want to try to put Bilbo in a random spot. Could you make him face a random direction? Could you get the ring in a random spot? So those are all your missions that you've got to deal with. You got to determine if he's hitting a wall. You got to determine where should I be deciding if he hits the wall, and how am I going to decide that? We'll talk about this in a second. You could use a Boolean if you feel like it. 2 jobs to do when he hits a wall, and then you want to see if you can get him in a random spot. Now, let's talk about this. This is not necessarily your friend when you are trying to determine if he hits a wall. We're going to talk about that. Okay, now if you're trying to decide if somebody is crossing out of your screen or touching a wall, you got to be really careful, because old Bilbo has some speed that he's moving, right? And I think he might be moving at like 15 pixels or 20 pixels or whatnot. Now, that means he's not actually completely touching every pixel. He's here, and then suddenly he might be here, right? So think about it as a basketball game. If Bilbo is catching the ball, right? Bilbo's here, and he jumps through the air, catches the ball, lands here. Is he out of bounds? Right? So what every kid wants to do is every kid wants to write code that says he's only out of bounds if he actually is touching this line, if he's actually standing on the line, which that's great. Standing on the line should be out of bounds. But it might be, you also have to think about, he's not going to touch every single spot on the floor. He might be here, catch the ball, and then be here, which still counts as out of bounds. So don't just say Bilbo's out of bounds when he's stepping on the line. He might go past that line and be out of bounds. Still count it out of bounds. Still count that as touching the wall. So again, it's not just when he's touching that line, it's also when he goes past that line would be considered touching a wall. So you want to think about that. Okay, and let me show you what your mission is. Your mission is you're going to have Bilbo not facing the ring when he starts. He should, now notice he hit the wall 4 times. It took him 4 hits before he actually got off the wall, and that's alright. So this variable here is going to be updating. When he hits the wall, he's changing his direction in some way. He actually hit the wall 7 times. He hit it 4 times here before he got off of it, 3 times there, and that's okay. And eventually it took him 217 steps. So that's your mission. You're going to be having this variable is going to be updating, and every time he hits the wall, and take a look at him. When he hits the wall here, he's turn, and so he actually made 4 turns right there. And I don't care how much you turn him. If I'd have turned him by more, maybe he would have gotten off the wall sooner. So you could play with how much you want him to turn when he hits the wall. He also needs to update his num hits variable. Now, what I'm going to show you now, I'm going to take you back and just show you syntax for everything that you have ever known. So you could pause the video on one of these if you need it. Here's how you're going to be doing. That's what a loop looks like. There's some math. There's some if statement syntax. And again, if you want to use the Boolean, you can. If you don't want to use the Boolean, you don't have to use the Boolean. That's what things would look like. So you can pause on one of those. Also, this is your mission. So you can pause here if you need to. You want to have him, you want to stop and plan. How many questions or decisions will I need to make? Where will I put them? Don't use that. You could use a Boolean, things you want to do when he touches a wall. Then when you're done, you would like to, you want to begin Bilbo in a random spot and make him face a random direction. And don't forget randomness. So, good luck. I'm going to leave you with your task list.